A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Cam Edwards, your host, glad to have you with us today. Coming up on the program in just a matter of moments, Phillip Van Cleave, the president of the Virginia Citizens Defense League, going to be with us on the show, talking about the upcoming Lobby Day, January the 20th in Richmond, Virginia. And the fact, well, we're going to talk a lot about what's going to be going on Lobby Day, but one of the things we're going to be talking about is the confusion right now over what the rules regarding firearms are going to be at the Virginia State Capitol on January the 20th, Friday afternoon. So a few hours after I finish recording this show, the Joint Rules Committee of the legislature, comprised of members of both the Senate and the House, are expected to take up the issue of guns on the Capitol grounds. And it is likely that they will declare the Capitol and its grounds a gun-free zone, if not for the entirety of the legislative session, almost certainly for Lobby Day on January the 20th. So keep that in mind as we move closer to the 20th, that, some of these anti-gun folks are going to do everything they can, I think, to try to sow confusion and rile up gun owners in the build-up to January 20th, which is something else that Phil and I talk about. Take a look and a listen. Phil, thank you so much, sir, for spending a couple of minutes with us today. I appreciate you taking some time out of your very busy schedule.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I appreciate you having me on, Cam.
Yeah, you bet. And I got to say congratulations to you and, frankly, the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Virginia gun owners that we've seen at this point that have, turned out at these segmented sanctuary meetings across the state, even after the Attorney General Mark Herring has said, these things don't have any legal standing whatsoever. We have seen this momentum stay. I don't think the momentum has slowed down a bit. It's just that we're running out of locations that can declare themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries now.
That's right. Portsmouth is one that we'll be working on in a few days, but there isn't much left. Well, the map is pretty solid green. There isn't a lot of, there's nothing much left. They tried to play games even up in Prince William, where they moved the meeting where they were going to repeal. A new board came in and they were going to repeal being a sanctuary, and they moved it to 2 p.m. on Wednesday when people had to work. We still flooded the building, and they ended up backing off, walking away from it for at least another month.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, and it really shows the power of the grassroots and those men and women up there in Prince William County who, you're right, they had to rearrange their schedule because of the monkey business that the supervisors were trying to pull there, and they showed up in force. I don't think the supervisors were expecting it, and it's incredible to see. And I tell you what, another place we're going to see gun owners turn up in force, I believe, is on January 20th at Lobby Day at the Capitol. The expectations, I think, are that there are going to be thousands of gun owners there. How many buses do you know, Phil? How many buses we're up to in terms of buses being chartered to go to the Capitol that day?
Over 100.
Holy moly!
We've chartered 33, I think, that I know of now. The number keeps going up. We keep chartering more because we keep filling them up, and from places. These are reaching out to places of the state we've never had a bus go to before, and they're filling up. And I've been hearing messages of other organizations. Maybe the Republicans in a certain area putting together buses. I think there may be 5 more coming from Northern Virginia. It's all told. Out of state, I think there's like 7 coming from Texas, of all things. We are the focus right now. We truly are the focus of the nation. Everybody is watching this state because freedom started here, and VCDL has vowed that it'll be damned if it'll end here. And so people are really focused.
They truly are, for better or for worse, right? Because, along with those Second Amendment supporters, I think there's also, those individuals who may want to use this as an opportunity to cause trouble, right? To paint gun owners in a bad light, to try to stir up stuff. So what are your expectations, and what are you asking gun owners to do when they're there at Lobby Day on the 20th?
Well, we're cooperating with the police. Richmond the state police and the Capitol Police to try to make sure that it's as safe an event as possible. There are going to be lots of them. Of course, we'll have who knows, up to over 100,000 possibly armed citizens. It's going to be interesting. But the thing we're going to really tell people is that we don't have a crystal ball. But one rule is very simple. If you see somebody trying to stir up trouble, go get a police officer. They're not going to be in the mood for that. And if somebody's egging you on, that's your sign to walk away, because I can guarantee if that's happening, there's going to be somebody else filming you. They're going to try and set you up to react to something, and then they'll film that, cut out the first part, make you look like you're loony. If you feel anything like that, where somebody's trying to push you, walk away, because it's set up. Hopefully that won't happen, but just be prepared just in case.
I think you have to be prepared for that. I saw a tweet from Shannon Watts where she talked about how, we'll be out there filming these gun nuts. So I think you're exactly right. There are going to be people who, try to use this again. They don't have, frankly, Phil, I think that great of a message, right? I mean, the message we've heard from Governor Northam is, well, we won. And Virginians want common sense gun laws, but that's not what we're actually seeing proposed here. We're seeing bills that would turn Virginians into felons if they keep their 15 or 20 round magazines, or if they maintain possession of their legally owned suppressors. This is, the red flag legislation that has been introduced, I think, is awful, and it doesn't even mention mental health, but it sure does abuse the due process rights of Virginians. These are not quote unquote common sense gun safety measures. These are attacks on the constitutional right to keep and bear arms, so I'm with you, and I think that is fantastic advice. Now, one of the other things that's sort of up in the air, as you and I are talking on Friday, we now know that the Joint Legislative Committee on the Rules is going to be meeting Friday afternoon, and what we're hearing is that they're going to be voting on restrictions on carrying firearms. I think there's a very good possibility that by January 20th, lawmakers are going to have declared the Capitol and the Capitol grounds a gun-free zone. Are you prepared for that possibility?
Well, as much as you can be. Again, we'll know more when we actually see what happens. But more than likely, what's going to happen is that they're going to be able to. They'll create a rule, which is not the same as a law. Mm-hmm. A law is something that has some real teeth in it. A rule, the rule will probably be something to the effect that would affect open carry. In other words, if they see a gun, they would ask you to leave, and you'd have to leave. Otherwise, it would be a trespass charge. So anyhow, we don't know what's going on. The best thing, if you're not going in the building, would be to just carry concealed handgun, and that way, if they change this and you don't hear, or you're not aware of it, or you forget, if it's concealed, nobody knows, no problem. So that would not be a day I would recommend for open carry if you're going to go to the Capitol. If you're just there to support, and you don't mind staying away from the Capitol, like on the streets, they're going to have some streets blocked off for people to stand and get together. Mm-hmm. Then it wouldn't apply there. Now, the General Assembly building, I think, for those that are going to be lobbying, as of right now, your concealed carry permit is still good to go in the building. So we just don't know what's going to exactly be there. The truth is, the Democrats are in disarray when it comes to setting rules and policies.
We have seen that this week. Yeah, you're not the first person to tell me that there seems to be a lot of confusion. They know what they want to do, but they don't exactly know how they're supposed to go about it in terms of, following parliamentary procedures and things of that nature. Yeah,
and the rules should have been set on
Absolutely.
Wednesday. And we're not Friday, and we still don't know what things coming up on all next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right, and I think that is. Frankly, that's another concern of mine, that they're going to do this at the last minute. Hoping to kind of sow that confusion, or if they're not hoping to, they're certainly not. Don't seem to be concerned about it. But again, it looks to be, just again a really historic moment. An opportunity for gun owners across the state to lobby their lawmakers. You've got a rally starting at 11 a.m., and thank you very much for the invite. I'm looking forward to speaking there. And again, I mean, when you talk about 100 buses, how many buses were sent to the Capitol for Lobby Day last year? Do you remember?
3 from us. I don't know, maybe 5 from the other side or 4 or something like that. They were busing people probably from New York and stuff.
But three from VCDL, and now you guys have 100 buses.
Yeah, we have our group has over 33, and other organizations have at least that many, and then we've got some coming from out of state line. The numbers that I heard recently from the Capitol Police were they're looking at over 100 buses. So
wow.
And then we got people carpooling.
Yeah.
The whole bit. I mean, it's just it's going to be massive. It's going to be like nothing we've ever seen before. For this, it's going to be absolutely eye-popping. And we turned out 100,000 people across the state in 6 weeks. So it shouldn't be too surprising that maybe we could turn out 100,000 to the Capitol or more. This is different. This is not business as usual. This is a very, very different scenario than anybody has seen before dealing with this issue of gun rights. By the way, if you look at all the gun bills, you mentioned about how they who they're attacking. Just if you think that they're about crime, and all of us have ruled that out, then you got to ask, what are they about? They're about disarmament. Think of it in that light, and then go over each of the bills and say, would this disarm me? And the answer, disarm honest people. If you do that, and if you go over it one after one after one, that's what they're all doing.
Unfortunately, you're right. We've pointed out the disastrous effects on people who are currently legal gun owners. Not only that, Phil, but I mean, you've got bills that have been introduced by Republicans that aren't getting any support by Democrats that would actually and effectively target violent criminals, and that's not what they're interested in, right? I mean, they really are turning their attention to those legal law-abiding gun owners, which is why we've seen this incredible turnout. I talked with a guy in Amelia County not long ago, and we've stayed in touch since I met him at the supervisors meeting. And, he was one of those guys who was contacting supervisors, really getting that ball rolling in Amelia County. And he told me, he said, I'm not an activist. He said, I've never done anything like this before. He said, I would much rather be working on my car. I'd rather be hanging out with my kids. He said, I vote, but I'm not political. He said, but when all of a sudden now I'm being told that the gun that I own, I can't pass down to my kids. Or I'm being told that my kids are not going to be able to enjoy the same constitutional rights that I've enjoyed. When I see my way of life threatened, he said, that's when I've got to get up off the couch and I've got to get involved. And I think we are seeing similar stories from folks who, again, maybe they show up on election day. A lot of these folks may not have even been registered to vote, but they are aware and they are involved now in a way that they have never been before in their adult lives.
I think they didn't realize. See, the other sides are talking about socialism and even communism, and I think they didn't really. I think they kind of, maybe it was the frog being cooked really slowly that he didn't notice that he was being cooked, and they didn't really know that this was coming. And then finally, it all came together. The Democrats put this package together aimed at people like you and P, who aren't criminals, and this isn't going to lower anything. People were saying why, and then finally they realized this is the step necessary, absolutely necessary to get to socialism, to disarm the populace. And finally it's hit people to say, stand up and no, we're not letting it happen. We cannot let this happen.
Yeah. Socialism
is not something for America. It is simply not, and we can't let it happen. So we're not disarmed, and so now they've got a problem.
Absolutely. But I want to, we've talked about January 20th, but I also want folks to understand, because I think the media too is now so fixated on January 20th. Both sides are so fixated. It's become a happening, right, to borrow a term from the 60s. I mean, it is an event in and of it to itself now. But gun owners, we have to be playing the long game, right? January 20th is lobby day. And then a couple weeks after that, we might start seeing Governor Northam sign some of these gun control bills. And then we move into another chapter. Now we start talking about litigation. Now we start talking about how are these measures going to be enforced. I don't want people to think that January 20th, I want people to show up. Don't get me wrong. I want people to be there, but I don't want people to think that when they leave, that their work is done.
Oh, no. Well, look, everybody out there better understand this is going to go on for years. at least 2 years. And actually, it's almost indefinitely that you have to be awake. You have to be voting. The other side's not, this is not going to be a thing where you defeat them and they walk away and it's over with and the sun comes out and it's shining and everything. It's not. There's always going to, just like there's always evil in the world, there's always going to be people wanting to take away your rights, turn us socialist, the whole bit. That's not going away. We just have to make sure that we're always stronger and better organized and out there voting more than they are, and educating friends and family about all this, making sure that our children understand what's going on and that they don't get fooled by what they're being taught in schools and stuff. We have to do this. But you're right, it is not going to be over on that day. And what will come next? Yeah, litigation, maybe protest. The time may come for a protest instead of a lobby day, where we come out in huge numbers and we say we're not going to comply. The resist movement, if you will. We don't know what's coming down the road. It's all really in the hands of the governor. In essence, he can push a button that could start a civil war. It's really up to him. We don't want any of this. Our side, all these people, you talk to any of them, it's no, we don't want any trouble. We just want our rights. We want our Constitution protected. But it's up to him. He could push a button that could start some very unpleasant things because the Second Amendment is there for a reason. And we're saying, please, let's not look at that reason. But it's really up to the governor. He could push it far enough where people realize they have no other options left.
Well, I got to tell you, I hope that is not the case. I think that would be a disastrous decision, both for the governor and for those, frankly, who would, take the governor's anti-gun moves as, some sort of sign that the political process is entirely broken down, because it absolutely is not. And I want people to understand that.
Not yet. Yeah, not yet. Absolutely not. We have plenty of time, plenty of effort. But there is a limit, and let's just keep it from there. Your actions now can prevent that. None of us want that, so let's do it now. Let's work the system. System isn't broke yet. Let's get in there and make sure that they back away from this stuff and that we can stop it. And that's why we're doing this. We want a peaceful solution, working through the system to save us from being part of a tyrannical state.
Well, and frankly, that's why I've reached out to the governor's office. I've asked him to come on this program here because, I said to a friend yesterday, Donald Trump and Iran are doing a better job of de-escalation right now than Governor Northam and Democrats are in the state. And I would like to see some de-escalation on the part of the governor, and sitting down and talking with gun owners instead of talking to them, I think would be a first step. Phil Van Cleave with the Virginia Citizens Defense League. As always, sir, I appreciate you joining me on the program, and I look forward to talking to you again very soon. All right, we will hopefully get another update from Phil next week before the 20th. But I just want to go back, and I want to talk about all of the talk that we've seen online about unrest and things are going to go bad there. I want people to truly understand where we are right now. And I also want people to understand that this is a political fight right now. And a lot of us don't like politics, right? A lot of us, in fact, we kind of hate it. That doesn't mean we can be bad at it. And it doesn't mean that we can ignore it. Because the other side is very good at playing the political game, as we've seen in the state of Virginia. So this is a political fight, and it is a long one. Again, after January 20th, we're going to need to keep up the legislative pressure on lawmakers in the hopes of turning back some of these bad bills and prevent them from becoming bad laws. Some of them are going to become bad laws, and then they're going to need to be challenged in court. We will also see a challenge to these bad laws at the grassroots level. We'll see what the reaction is in Second Amendment sanctuary communities. We'll see how many sheriffs say, it's not going to be an enforcement priority. How many Commonwealth's attorneys say, I'm not going to be bringing these cases. We'll see how many residents in the, what is it that Phil said, 96% of the state of Virginia that have adopted Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions, how many of those residents refuse to convict somebody for continuing to possess a 20-round magazine or a lawfully owned suppressor or their AR-15 after they did not register with the state of Virginia? Again, we're in the early stages. I know that passions are high. I see these bills too. I'm right here in the epicenter of it all. Our studios in Farmville, Virginia are about 20 miles or so from the geographic center of the state of Virginia. I am literally in the epicenter of what is happening here. I am just as angry about the assaults on our right to keep and bear arms as anybody else is. But I want to win. I want to be victorious. And in order to do that, we have to play the long game, and we have to be able to play the political game as well. So my advice for those who are engaged and active right now is stay involved, understand that anti-gun politicians, anti-gun activists, and many members of the media will do everything they can to portray you in as bad a light as possible. Now, that's not an excuse for go ahead and behaving badly. That's something to keep in mind, because we can win this political fight. We have better arguments. We have the Constitution and the Bill of Rights on our side. But we also have data on our side. We can point to the fact that red flag laws implemented in Indiana and Connecticut did not reduce the overall suicide rate. We can point to the fact that all rifles in the state of Virginia accounted for or were involved in less than 10% of all homicides in the state. And yet these are the items that Governor Northam wants to ban. We can talk about the impact that these laws will have, not just on, rural white guys with beards and bellies like me, but on young black men in the inner city. And the disproportionate impact that these gun control laws will have, even though they're voted on and approved by politicians who proclaim themselves to be criminal justice reform champions. We can point out the hypocrisy. Now, that's not going to change hearts and minds overnight. Again, we're playing the long game. And we're not just playing this in Virginia. We're playing it across the country as well. It is an election year. And Democratic presidential candidates from Joe Biden all the way down to whoever's in last place these days. Who was that? Cory Booker? Would love to be able to point to Virginia and say, look, see, this is why we need common sense gun restrictions all across the country. So my advice, if you're going to Lobby Day on the 13th or the 20th, go there to lobby. Go there to lobby your lawmakers, the public, but go there with the idea that, again, you want people to get a better understanding of why Governor Northam's laws are so fundamentally objectionable to so many Virginians, so many average Virginians, as Michael Bloomberg would say. Moms and dads, sons and daughters, teachers, farmers, accountants, police officers, members of the National Guard. You're going to see a cross-section of the state of Virginia there on January the 20th. But again, we need to be doing everything we can right now to inform and to educate the average non-gun owner out there about what this movement is all about and why so many Virginians are standing up and saying no. All right, I'm going to quit lecturing, and I'm going to get to a couple of emails here before we have to say goodbye for the weekend. Let's start with an email from Rick, who says, longtime fan, listen to your podcast every day. Rick, thank you, sir. I also want to thank Rick for being at the Prince William County meeting that Phillip Van Cleave talked about. For Ann Wheeler's first meeting, Rick says, she got a hard lesson that an authoritarian heavy hand was not going to work for her constituents. Indeed. Rick says, also, you mentioned that the NRA in Fairfax may be the only range affected by House Bill 567, which is Dan Helmer's bill that would force ranges to close if they operate in a building with more than 50 employees. Elite Shooting Sports in Manassas, Rick says, has 60-plus employees. Blue Ridge Arsenal and Chantilly may also be affected. Great show. Keep it up, says Rick, and thank you very much. I do appreciate you checking in, and I appreciate the extra information. I think, Rick, you're right. I think that there are a couple of other ranges in the state that would be impacted by House Bill 567. I'm not sure that was actually the intent of Dan Helmer. I think Helmer actually tried to write that bill in such a way that it only would have impacted the NRA range, but it may have become a little bit broader. Speaking of House Bill 567 and a couple of the other bills that we've seen introduced, Virginia Governor Ralph Northam did say on Thursday that he is backing officially only in air quotes, the 8 gun control proposals that he proposed after the shooting in Virginia Beach in 2019. So Dan Helmer's bill, for example, dealing with gun ranges, that's not on the list of bills that the governor is actively supporting. Now, the governor did not come out and say any of these gun control measures that we've seen go too far. He didn't come out and say, you know what, I don't think Dan Helmer's bill is all that helpful. Instead, he just said he's not taking a governor's spokesperson said that the governor is just not taking a position on any of these other bills. He is supportive of those 8, including the House quote-unquote assault weapons ban or the assault firearms ban that would ban not only the most commonly produced rifles in America today, but would ban the continued legal possession of ammunition magazines that can hold more than 10 rounds, legally owned suppressors, legally purchased trigger activators. You would not be allowed to continue to possess those items that you now lawfully possess. And the governor says that's a compromise because you can register your assault firearms with the state of Virginia and receive permission to keep them. Again, that's not going to be a compromise that brings anybody to the table. But those are the only gun control bills that the governor says he is actively supporting. William writing in as well says, really enjoyed your YouTube video, an invitation to Governor Ralph Northam. That was Thursday's video. Thank you for that, William. He says, I agree with the crime violence statistics that you quoted. He said, I recently researched 2018 crime stats in Virginia from the Uniform Crime Reporting Program. And I actually made a fact sheet about this. I made a cover letter to all 140 delegates and senators in the Virginia General Assembly, requested that the members of the General Assembly focus on some of the issues that you highlighted in your program, like addressing the underlying issues of crime violence rather than on gun control. And he says, it's interesting. I found that 12 cities and counties in Virginia, out of, what did Phil say, 133, right? 95 counties, and then you've got some independent cities and towns. So of those 130 some odd reporting jurisdictions, William says, I found 12 experienced double-digit homicides in 2018. And he said, significantly, I believe that all but 2 of these entities have declined to pass Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions. Virginia Beach and Prince William County have passed 2A resolutions, but, of course, Prince William County, they want to rescind their 2A resolution. Bill says, why do you think that cities and counties with the highest numbers of homicides in Virginia are not supportive of the citizens' right to keep and bear arms? It seems to me that these communities would have the most to gain from programs that address the underlying issues of crime violence that you highlighted in your program. Bill, it is a great question. And I think that there are a couple of reasons why. First, there is the fact that most of these areas are deep blue. It just is. They're Democrat controlled. And for decades now, the preferred means of addressing violent crime for the left has been gun control, right? I mean, that's the go-to. We got to do something, got to pass a gun control law. So there is a knee-jerk reaction, I think, on the part of a lot of politicians and a lot of voters that, well, this is the way we deal with these things. What we're seeing, again, is that there's more and more research coming out, even from folks who like the idea of gun control. There's more and more research coming out showing these laws really don't make a difference. They don't really work, right? Garen Winnemute with University of California, Davis, who is an ardent gun control supporter, has produced a number of studies on states that have implemented universal background check laws, for example. And he's found the background checks don't go up once these laws are put in place. And the recommendation is, well, you just need to improve the enforceability. They don't say how, because these laws are largely unenforceable anyway. There was a researcher at Boston University. I mentioned her in my piece at National Review not long ago, but I'm blanking on her name now. But she came out with a report along with another team of researchers. This was probably 3 weeks, maybe a month or so ago, so like early December. And what she found is that youth gun-related violence continues to go up even when states implement gun control laws. So you can put new gun control laws on the books, but it doesn't bring down the level of violence. And her recommendation was, again, quit focusing on these broad-based laws that are aimed at legal gun owners and focus on the people who are most likely to commit these violent crimes and most likely to be the victim of violent crimes. It's the same group of people, by the way. So, that's real common sense, isn't it? You want to reduce violent crime? Focus on the people who are committed it. Try to disrupt that. And there's not a single proposal that's been introduced in Virginia by Democrats that would do that. Instead, they're trying to ban their way to safety. So I think that some of it is purely ideological, Bill. They don't like gun ownership. They don't believe that you should have a right to keep and bear arms. They want to do everything they can to prevent as many people as possible from doing so. But then I think that there's another group that cares less about the idea of gun control, cares more about the idea of public safety, but is getting bad information. And unfortunately, they're being represented by politicians who do want to put more of a focus on curbing legal gun ownership than actually impacting violent criminals, both positively in terms of helping them get out of that lifestyle, and then negatively by locking them up behind bars if they don't change their ways. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. I do appreciate you being a part of the program. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Rest up if you're a Virginia gun owner in particular, because things are going to get busy. Actually, not even if you're a Virginia gun owner in particular. We've got legislative sessions kicking off all around the country. So make sure you're staying abreast of everything that's going on by reading bearingarms.com each and every day, multiple times a day. You can also subscribe to Bearing Arms Cam and Company at Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, the Town Hall Podcast page as well, and subscribe to Town Hall Media at YouTube. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here Monday with another brand new edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company.